Hello, and thank you for joining me. If this is your first time here, my name is Kelly, and if you're coming back, then thank you for returning. This video, I will be focusing on using Trinity Stamps Summer Bouquet Builder. This is a previously released stamp, but it's one, we're coming up on summer weather, and this is one that I think would be a great addition to any craft room. So for this card, I'm going to be focusing on those two stamps, those two floral stamps. And I also want to add that this stamp set has a bunch of great little sentiments that make great label sentiments. And I love sets that have that. So to begin with, I wanted to also let you know that I already pre-cut my masks on some 3M fully sticky Post-its. The fully has the stick-it adhesive all the way, not stick-it adhesive, it has the adhesive across the full Post-it note. These are a good way to make small masks and relatively cheap. The paper I'm working on is Bristol Smooth. It's a larger piece. I tend to sometimes cut them bigger, and this way I have room for scribbling, see other colors and whatnot. So I pre-treated my paper with my anti-static powder tool. I tend to take off the top, sprinkle some on my paper because it doesn't seem to be enough. I always seem to get stray embossing everywhere. But by using extra overdosing on the powder, it seems to alleviate my embossing issues. I'm heating it up with Wow embossing powder in white. It's hard to see. Oh, wait, is it white or clear? You know what? I apologize. I use clear, not white. So I'm, again, just repeating. I'm using my mask. It's hard to see off camera. It's hard to see on camera, rather. I just keep on repeating, like the little text says right there. And I'm just stamping over and over again. And I'm creating a background stamp by just using those two stamps. And it really, really makes a pretty background. Now this is my favorite trimmer. I love my Guillotine trimmer here. And I'm just trimming my panel down to be a basic A2, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Just trimming that down, and I wind up going, once I ink blend, I trim it down even further, but just for ink blending purposes only, I just measured 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I realized when I looked in the light that a few edges needed a few more, some edges were blank, so I just used the little corners of the flower to fill in those little areas that were vacant. So I'm using my favorite rainbow combination here in Distress Inks, and these blend wonderfully. I'm terrible blending, terrible. But on Bristol paper, these Distress Inks work great. I don't have the full-size Distress Inks. I only have the minis, but I have the refills. This way, if they start to go a little dry, I can just ink them up and they're good to go. So I'm using these colors. All my products that I'm using in this video will be linked below if you're interested. And yeah, once I get all my colors on there, I wipe it off with a towel, any color that is on top of the embossing, which again, this is an emboss resist technique. Now I take the black cardstock that I use for my panels, for the mat underneath. I just use cheap 65-pound cardstock. I don't want to use my good stuff when it's just going to be covered up anyway. So I just use cheap black cardstock for this. Once that's on there and dry, I put my panel on, and that's when I realize I want to trim it down a little bit so the black peeks out from the back. Now, my original card idea was to use some baker's twine in black and white. I added it on, I showed it to my daughter, and she said no. take away the string. So if you're going to see that in the camera coming up shortly on the side, but I did have it on my original card plan, but I took it off. So now here I'm using Wow Embossing in white for my sentiment. The cardstock I'm using is 110-pound cardstock for my sentiment. I don't use the cheap stuff for that. Now I cut hugs. This is also a Trinity item from their last release, and I cut hugs 3 times each in black, so it would be black all the way through. And I actually put glue on the wrong side of the H. This is a classic Kelly mistake. You know, so what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do? So I move forward, and I knew I was going to put a little bit of sparkle on the letters anyway, on top, and then glossy accents on top of it, so you don't really see it. See, you just saw the string there, but I removed it because I said, sometimes I do this. I'll ask my daughter or my husband, I say, what do you like, you know, with this or without? And they'll say, I get their votes. If they both agree on something, then that's what I go with, because sometimes I'm undecided. So I'm adding here my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen, and I realized it was a little bit too much sparkle, so I used a water brush and I just removed some of the sparkle there. And now I'm trying to figure out where I want to add my, I'm removing the water. Yeah, water sometimes will remove a little bit. If it's too much sparkle, sometimes it just comes out too much. You could just use a little bit of water to remove it, and that's what I'm doing here. So yeah, I was trying to figure out where I wanted my sentiment, my secondary sentiment, to be above, below. So I decided to put the thinking of you straight across the hugs sentiment. I liked it there. It worked out well. And then I was going to use my fine tip glossy accents, and I realized, you know what, this will take me all day. So I went ahead with my regular glossy accents, and just, I'll zoom in here in a moment, you can see better. I always squeeze the glossy accents off to the side to make sure that I'm not getting any air bubbles, because that is very frustrating to get air bubbles in your glossy accents. You don't notice it at first too much, but then when it dries, you can see them. So I am a huge fan of glossy accents. I use them almost on every card in one way or another. And they're also great to make, like if you see that sentiment where it says you could put a little drop under there where you can just bend the sentiment up and leave it in the bubble, and it will act like a foam pad. You know, it'll support your sentiment. So that's another good use for glossy accents. Now I'm also adding Trinity Stamps boiled sugar jelly drops. These are like the round clear droplets. And these are fantastic because they come in real big ones and real small ones. So you have a wide range of sizes to choose from, which I really love that. So I'm adding my droplets here, and I use glossy accents to adhere them with my Crystal Katana, another tool I'm very fond of. And that's pretty much it, folks. So I just wanted to say, you know, look at your stamps. You could find stamps, you can make background stamps from just repeat stamping. You know, stretch your stamps, get more uses out of them, and we're all getting stuck inside, so let's try to be creative and stretch your supplies. Shopping's fun, but it's also great to stretch your supplies and use them in ways that you normally wouldn't use them. I want to say thank you again so much for stopping by. I truly appreciate it. I know there's so many videos out there from different card makers, and you spending the time here means a lot to me. If you get a chance, check out Trinity's channel and their release. And if you don't mind liking and subscribing, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much, and have a great day.